This is a pretty long clip, and there's a number of fights in it. I really just grouped them all together because they happened within a couple hours of each other, I believe. In this clip, I actually caught a guy moving in to a wormhole, and he was setting up his boss. He didn't have any guns online or anything, and he went out to high sec, probably to Jita or something. The exit was near Jita, so I set up a bubble between the high sec and this boss, and I was camping it with a bomber, and he actually came in with a pod, but he was lucky enough to not be caught in the bubble. So he warped out and he shipped into a Vexor, and he was shooting this bubble, but then he warped off, and for some reason he warped back into the bubble, and I reshipped to an Ishtar, and I just catch him here. It's really not much to this. The Ishtar just beats the Vexor, but like I said, it was around the same time as a couple of other fights, so I just included it here. And it's actually, this Vexor does a lot of damage. I mean, I guess a gank Vexor, which is how it was fit, does a lot of damage, but I was still kind of surprised at how much it actually did, and I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit worried here. Also, he was using a Gecko, and he did the whole, like, Gecko mediums, lights type thing, you know, maximum DPS type stuff, so. Anyways, that's that. I was spiking a lot here, I'm not really sure why, but. And then he gets a spot out very quickly. This guy is actually a competent PvPer, and so I felt a little bit bad for bringing a ship like that. You know, could have just run a similar size ship and, you know, had a better fight. But anyways, that's Eve. And in this next clip, I found a dummy ratting in an adjacent wormhole. And I'm not really going to talk about this fight too much. It's kind of the same thing as the last fight. It's a foregone conclusion that a newt Vexor will kill the vast majority of ratting battleships, and a newt Ishtar will just definitely kill them. A couple things to note. He was using, well, first of all, I'm locking the mobile tractor unit here because I was considering killing it first, but I decided not to in the end. He's only using thermal drones, so I have a thermal hardener on, and you really should be cap injected. You shouldn't have cap rechargers like I do here, but I just am lazy and, you know, refit from PvE. And then also, you know, he's got railguns, so I don't have to worry about his guns, and he sent his drones to kill it. I was watching him just before I came in, and he had sent his drones off to a turret 100 kilometers away, so his drones are nowhere near. And then when they do go close, I kill him off, and he doesn't micro him at all, so. Anyways, this fight is, and you know, don't put railguns on a dummy if you're going to use it in hostile space. Just put newts on it. You know, you could have newted me off here and then you would have been fine, but instead you had to have the extra anemic railgun DPS. Anyways, what happens after this is I see a prospect kind of warping around, and I know it's in a C3 that's connected to this, so I go and I try to hunt down the prospect, and I see that I actually find him in the low sec static of that wormhole, and or that wormhole system, and I go ahead and camp the hole to the low sec with the dictor, waiting for him to come back. So I hear a hole activation, and I'm waiting for him to drop cloak, and then when the cloak finally drops, it's a different guy, and he's in a sin. And I'm like trying to decide if I actually want to attack the sin in my dictor, but I'm pretty sure I'll just get blacked and that'll be the end of it. So I jump out to low sec, and I guess he, expecting a fleet to drop on him, also jumps back out into low sec. He's polarized, but I jump back into the C3 and I reship to an Ishtar, and I wait for him on the inside of the C3. And eventually he does jump back in, and his friend, I think in a Batten, also lands on the hull, but he lands a 0 on the hull, and just like in this fight, you can see that that basically means that neither of them are much of a threat. So I start taking down the Sin, and he hops back out to low sec, and I hop out with him. He cloaks, I decloak him, I start fighting him again, and you know, he's like getting into structure and everything, and he actually gets off the ECM burst and warps out. So I'm, you know, pretty depressed about that, but I jump back into the C3 and I decide I'll go. You know, I know that if I repair my ship, which has, you know, maybe 20% armor damage, but I don't know how the next fight's gonna go, so I decide I'm gonna repair it and risk letting the Sin back in. And the Sin does get back in, and I see as I'm warping back to the hole that he's, you know, warping toward his boss. And I land on the hole, and there's actually a tornado 100 off waiting for me. gets a shot off on me before I work away, and I guess he figures that I'll come back at 100, and I do, but I come back in a bomber, and I see that they've replaced the tornado with an Ishtar that's now sitting 70 off of the hull. So I decide that instead of using my bomber, I'm going to reship into my own Ishtar, and I'm going to land at 70 from the hull right on top of the Ishtar. The enemy Ishtar sat 70 off of the hull with guards deployed, expecting me to come in at 100, and then I would be right at guard range, and I'd have to sit there and eat 800 DPS. So anyways, this Tommy goes down, and I start attacking the mobile tracked unit, and here I am in the Ishtar a little while later, warping to 70 on the hull, where the enemy Ishtar is with guards out. And I'm hoping that he won't abandon or recall his drones, and I won't be taking any damage from the guards. And it turns out that's exactly what happens. And also, kind of like in the same way that I'm halfway PvE fit, this guy is also halfway PvE fit. So it's sort of a silly fight, but we'll see how it goes. And then also, of course, with guards, he's shooting at one of my highest resists. I actually use EM drones. EM drones are pretty, if you don't know how they're tanked, they're pretty good. If he's shield tanked, then they're good. If he's armor tanked, then they're still pretty good. If he has this explosive pulse, he's still shooting at the best, possible resist hull. And you can see here he's dropping pretty quickly. He's actually armor tanked, but he doesn't have a plate or anything, so he's going down quickly. And you can kind of see, if you look closely, there's another ship here shooting me, but because I have the drone overview out, I don't see it. I was thinking I would kill his guards, but I realized that it's actually not really even worth doing here. So I just go ahead and burn them down. And when I switch back to my normal overview, you can see there's a rapier. For some reason, he's 7k off of me, which is not the range you want to be at when you're in a rapier. So I think, okay, cool, I'll get this Ishtar, and then I'll get another rapier, or I'll get a rapier as well. But I messed this up pretty badly here. I point him, and I realize, as I'm sitting there burning down, just kind of thinking back, watching his life go down, I realize actually he's a rapier, and so I need to make sure that I really burn from him. I need to overheat my prop mod or something like that, so that I don't drop point. And I don't realize this until I've already dropped point, so I'm like trying to correct and make sure I stay in range after I've already dropped point, and I don't realize that I've already dropped point. And I finally realize that I've dropped point just as he starts to warp off. So I actually lose this very easy kill of this, this rapier that just warped right on top of me for whatever reason. So that was really sad, I got an Ishtar kill, but I came out of the fight pretty depressed about that. And so after this, I go and I reship again to a bomber to kind of get eyes on the situation. And we'll wait for that clip to come up here. And what I find here is a Myrmidon and a Typhoon. And at this point, I mean, I've had some good luck today, so I figure, well, why not do something a little bit silly? And what I was gonna do here is wait for the ships to warp off, hoping that they didn't fleet warp correctly. And if they don't, then what'll happen is the Myrmidon will work first, and the Typhoon will still kind of stick around for a couple seconds. And if I'm quick, I can decloak and block the Typhoon. And I've killed, battleships and bombers before, but I'm a little hesitant with the Typhoon because I think it can probably outrun me if it's got, a micro warp drive. It can just jump away if it's got a micro jump drive. And I'm not sure if I can tank the missile DPS to kill a battleship and a bomber. It takes a long time. You're going to go through a couple reloads, especially if you don't have bombs equipped, and here I have probes. So, and I've got like a painter and a rigger rig. I'm not really set up to kill battleships, so I'm checking out the Myrmidon, seeing if he's aligned out or what. He's just pointed off at some random direction in space, but then he turns here, so I think, okay, he's probably trying to warp off now. And sure enough, he does warp, and I see him there. His speed drops, so he warped, and then I decloak and I point the battleship here. And my big mistake here was I didn't check his weapons. You know, I was expecting torpedoes, maybe cruise. I don't really know Typhoon fits, to be honest with you, but he's rapid heavy fit, so I start taking a huge amount of damage. I'm not expecting it. I don't manage my reps quickly, but it doesn't really matter. There's just no way I was going to kill him here. And since, like I mentioned before, I was worried about the speed, I kind of, you know, move in toward them. And these guys haven't really shown any sort of major competent play, so I'm just like, you know what, I have to manage my shields here. I'm just not even going to worry about the range. It's not like he has a web, but he has a web, and he also has a painter, so that just kind of adds fuel to the fire. The only thing working for me here is that he was shooting Nova, which is the worst damage type to be shooting at a shield tank ship, and probably the worst possible thing could have been shooting at me, but rapid heavies or rapid heavies. And he was probably also wanting my Ishtar to come back, which has a huge explosive thing. So anyways, I realized, quite a while before this that I'm not making it out of this alive, but I figure I'll just tank him for as long as possible, you never know. But here I run out of charges, and I overwrapped quite a bit. And also, yeah, I drop block here, and I don't notice it for a while, which I guess he has a target spectrum break or something. I'm not really sure what happened there, but then I go down, But overall, it was a good day. Missed the rapier, but otherwise got a few solid kills. This thing got away. There's nothing I could really do about that, though. And also, just an interesting note, we actually, the reason I was kind of hanging out in this hole to begin with is there was a guy that was multi-boxing 20 Harbingers, and I went ahead and called in my alliance for that one, and we took him out while he was actually AFK, which is probably lucky for us, because we probably would have died anyway. But anyways, that's it for this.